Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to be with you all this evening. We're broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Hope you're all having a good start to the week. We appreciate you stopping by here with our coverage of this Falcon 9 rocket getting ready to take flight from Slick 40 over at the Cape. Just under 59 minutes on the clock remaining as SpaceX is targeting a planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket coming up at 12:43 a.m. Eastern. That is 04:43 UTC for our friends joining around the world. We've got most of the usual team out tonight, getting ready to support the coverage of this mission. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operations of the broadcast alongside John Pisani. Adam Bernstein out and about, setting the cameras, getting ready to track the Falcon 9 and do some still photography as well. Our other photographer, Michael Kane, has this launch off, but you may see him possibly pop into the live chat throughout the course of the stream, so be sure to give him a big ol' hello if you do spot him there. Speaking of folks in the stream, want to thank the more than 700 of you who are watching with us live tonight. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, sharing the stream, allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. And within the live stream, want to thank our moderators, Jeff Hansen and Clisty Lee, for helping us out, keeping things kosher in the chat. As a reminder, you can help our mods out by following the rules of the chat. Broadly speaking, we ask that you refrain from delving into overt politics and religion, that you converse in English so that our mods can respond appropriately, that you refrain from using all caps, and of course follow the golden rule of treating others as you would want to be treated in the chat. This live launch opportunity is made possible in no small part thanks to our wonderful channel member community here on YouTube. So thanks to folks like our newest channel member, Virginia Pruitt, who just joined at the Pad Leader level. I am Lita, Annie Mecca, Cumulus Granatus, Ryan Snyder, Well-Reasoned Superhawk, Zuvale, and many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, that is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to our member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. And speaking of a growing channel member community, I want to thank one of our pre-existing channel members, Gunnar S., for gifting 10 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that, Gunnar. Thank you for helping to grow our little community here on YouTube. And to those who are gifted channel membership, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Gunnar in the live chat. We hope you decide to stick around with channel membership beyond the month you were just gifted. Last but not least, if you have a comment or question about this mission and would like to have your comment elevated for discussion, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature. And not only will you be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that, my friends, is always greatly appreciated. As we get ready to see this Falcon 9 rocket take flight, do you want to give a tip of the cap and a congratulations to the folks at Rocket Lab for a successful launch earlier this evening here on the East Coast, that is. It was just before noon there in New Zealand with the flight of their Electron rocket in support of Black Sky's Gen 3 satellite constellation. This is the second of the Gen 3 Earth observing and intelligence gathering satellites that has been launched for Black Sky. If you'd like to read more about the satellite and the mission, you can head on over to our website, spacelightnow.com. It's the top story on the website right now. Also, I want to thank our channel member and moderator, Jeff Hansen, for a $10 super chat, who says, "Go Cape, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Starlink, Godspeed 1077." 1077, the tail number of the booster flying today, and we'll talk a little bit more about its history as it prepares to make its 21st flight in just a little bit. Taking a look at our wide basin shot here as we're just about 53 minutes ahead of flight. Every now and again, you may see some pops of lightning that may look a little threatening to Slick 40, the pad out there. Rest assured, though, those storms are well offshore as we take a look at this satellite view loop, bringing this vantage point in. Those little colored splotches that are just to the east of Florida, those highlighted rainbow colors are where the lightning is actually located. So, fortunately, well to the east of the pad, and Falcon 9 rocket's actually going to be flying at a trajectory that'll take it a little bit south of those lightning enhanced storms as well. So, weather remains a watch item for today's mission. In fact, coming into this launch opportunity, the 45th Weather Squadron forecast a 65% chance for favorable weather at liftoff, or a 35% probability of violating weather constraints, put another way. Teams are tracking the potential impacts for violations of the cumulus cloud rule, the surface electric fields rule, and the anvil cloud rules. While the storms are a ways off, a detached anvil cloud can extend the impact of a thunderstorm well beyond the center of it. And so those are something that meteorologists are going to be tracking quite closely over the course of the remaining 51 minutes and some change. Of course, SpaceX does have a little bit of a window of opportunity for today's launch that extends out to 1:28 a.m. Eastern, as long as SpaceX has not begun fueling its Falcon 9 rocket. Coming up on 49 minutes ahead of flight tonight. You can see just a little to the right of the pad, illuminated by that spotlight. You can just see the American flag there moving a hair in the breeze. Winds are fairly light tonight. Meteorologists forecast the winds at liftoff to be between 8 and 12 miles per hour. So certainly not going to have a weather impact from the wind, but as you just saw on the left-hand side of your screen, still are seeing from our vantage point those pops of lightning. But again, if you're just joining our broadcast coverage, those are well off to the east of the pad, and so hopefully will not be impactful for the launch opportunity tonight. But again, that will depend in part on if there are any detached anvil clouds that are lingering around the pad at liftoff. Tonight's mission of the Starlink 12-19 batch of Starlink satellites will be the 49th time that SpaceX has sent up Starlinks so far this year. On board are 23 of the V2 Mini optimized Starlink satellites, with 13 of them featuring direct-to-cell capabilities. SpaceX is approaching its 500th Falcon 9 launch to date. It'll hit that milestone later this summer. Tonight's flight will be the 484th Falcon 9 launch to date. As we're approaching the point at which SpaceX will start the fueling process for its Falcon 9 rocket, let's go ahead and take a moment and step through the countdown timeline and let you know the milestones that we are anticipating with a good countdown to fueling and hopefully a good launch of this rocket as well. Things will get going at the T-minus 38-minute mark or thereabouts, when the SpaceX launch director gives the go-ahead for the start of prop load. SpaceX does this readiness pull electronically, so if they're in a good position, they can take it a little bit early, make that call. But the start of fueling will always begin at the 35-minute mark with the loading of RP1, a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen will begin flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. T-minus 30 minutes is when they start loading a cryogenic helium on board the Falcon 9's first stage into the pressure vessels. Same will be true on the second stage a few minutes after. Helium is used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes is when the second stage RP1 loading wraps up. And at T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds is when the strong back chill down process will get underway. SpaceX at this point would be chilling the feed lines ahead of second stage liquid oxygen load. We'll see this visually manifest as the so-called big vent. That'll come up here at pad 40 at about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. It's a good visual indication that the T0 time is coming up as expected, and that all is continuing on track with fueling. That vent will last until about 16 and a half minutes before T0, setting up the second stage liquid oxygen load process to begin at the 16-minute mark. Moving right along, at 7 minutes out, the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines will begin. That's when SpaceX starts to flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. 6 minutes out, the first stage kerosene tank is full. And at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract sequence get underway. It's when the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings open up and the transporter erector, or the strong back, will recline about a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket and stay in that position until liftoff. At that point, it'll pull back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. T-minus 3 minutes is when the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage about a minute afterwards, at which point the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call of the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. The SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch 45 seconds before flight. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, coming up at 12:43 a.m. Eastern, 04:43 UTC, T-minus 42 minutes and 30 seconds. Coming up on 40 minutes, 30 seconds before flight. Taking a look at our live chat, I want to thank a few folks for their support this evening. Our thanks to channel member and moderator Clistia Lee for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Thank you so much for the generosity, Clistia. Good to see you this evening. Thanks for growing our member community here on YouTube. And a welcome aboard to our 5 newest channel members. Be sure to thank Clistia in the live chat if you haven't already. Well Reason Superhawk with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Well Reason. It says, and I'll echo, please hit like, subscribe, and share. As always, thank you Spaceflight Now and mods for a great job. Thank you for the kind words, Real Reasoned. Appreciate you putting out the like bat symbol, if you will. Also, be sure to stick around in the post-launch wrap-up, as we'll have our own little roundup of the various launch views from tonight's flight of the Falcon 9. Also want to thank another channel member, Butterfly, for now marking 17 months with us as a channel member at the pad leader level, who says, I hope all will be safe this hurricane season. And will you sound much better tonight? Well, thank you. I do feel much better. I think the rain we've been having for these last few days is helping to tamp down some of the pollen that has been flying around here in Florida. So that's certainly been quite helpful. And all of us who suffer from seasonal allergies here in the Sunshine State, I'm sure appreciate that. And yes, as we are now officially within the Atlantic hurricane season, now is the time to take the precautions, be prepared, do all of the necessary things to make sure that you and your loved ones, first and foremost, have a plan of action before there's a named storm that is heading our way. Typically, don't see things start to really heat up until late summer, usually around August into September is when the tropics really start kicking up. But right now, I believe there's still some Saharan dust making its way across the Atlantic, which helps tamp things down in the early part of hurricane season. As SpaceX should have made a call now on the start of prop load, John Pisani hopping in my ear to be the Debbie Downer of the Spaceflight Now team and point me towards the National Hurricane Center, which technically, officially, as of Monday evening, they are watching a non-tropical area of low pressure, which is forecast to form near or offshore of the southeastern United States within the next 2 to 3 days. But they say that the system has a, quote, low chance of formation later this week while moving northeastward at 10 to 15 miles per hour. So it is hurricane season. There is some activity that is just starting to materialize, but again, a low chance of formation, fortunately. And by formation, for those not in the weeds of hurricane jargon, essentially means the chance of organizing into either a subtropical or tropical storm or, heaven forbid, a hurricane. But the odds of that sound very unlikely at this point, which is a good thing. Coming up on 36 minutes now ahead of flight for this Falcon 9 rocket. No hurricane stopping this Falcon from flying if all is going smoothly on the technical side of things. Assuming the go-ahead for tanking was given, fueling set to start in just about 40 seconds from now. We're going to be looking near the base of the Falcon 9 rocket. Fortunately, we do have a little bit of heat distortion tonight, but not too bad. You can actually see quite a bit of the rocket and looks like the pad deck as well, which is nice. Sometimes the trees are stretched out and blocking our view, but you can actually make out just a little bit of venting near the bottom of the pad as we're just discussing off mic. Just under 35 minutes. Here's what we're going to be looking for now that presumably tanking of the rocket is underway. If you see the lettering of SpaceX just beneath the X, where you see the color gradient start to shift from a lighter gray to a deeper, more charcoal gray, and there's that white band that runs across the rocket. Right at that point is where we'll start to see a bit of a frost line form and some vapor in that area of the rocket as well. as the super cold densified liquid oxygen begins to flow on board the vehicle. Obviously, considerably colder than the warm, humid air here in Florida, so that'll create that vapor effect. We also have our microphones out and about, getting ready to capture some rich sound of the Falcon 9 rocket once it does take off from the pad. Maybe hearing some of the more pesky neighbors that you will find out at the Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge, which are, of course, an unfortunate abundance of mosquitoes. So thankfully, our Adam Bernstein is not one that is terribly attractive to mosquitoes. So they don't entirely avoid him, but they are not quite as viciously attracted to him out and about as he's getting ready to track the Falcon 9, which is good. That said, we do have some mosquito protection and bug or anti-bug spray for the team. So we do try to take as much precaution against those little pests as possible, but you may hear they're buzzing against our mics. Especially notable if you're wearing earbuds or any type of headphones as you're listening to our broadcast this evening. And as you can see now, we are very clearly seeing the vapor around the base of the Falcon 9 rocket, just beneath that X where I was mentioning. That good visual sign is proof positive that SpaceX is now fueling its Falcon 9 rocket, which does mean they're locking into the T0 time as planned, 12:43 a.m. Eastern, 04:43 UTC for our friends around the world. Time now, T minus 28 minutes, 7 seconds and counting. If you're just joining us this evening, SpaceX has begun fueling its Falcon 9 rocket in anticipation of launching the Starlink 12-19 mission. That's coming up at 12:43 a.m. Eastern, 04:43 UTC for those joining in around the globe. Want to welcome in new channel members Mike V and Chris L, joining us with membership at the Mission Specialist and Pad Leader levels, respectively. Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. I see James is joining us from Georgia tonight. Seeing where some of the other folks are popping in from. Number of people sharing their disdain for mosquitoes. Totally get that. It's been all the chatter behind the scenes ever since I made that comment. So let us know where you're watching from this evening, whether you're here in Florida with us or farther up north. And also if you were able to catch some of the visual splendor from the geomagnetic storm. Sadly, we have not seen any of the marvelous views of the aurora down in our neck of the woods, but hopefully folks further up north like Lady Hawk MB Hayer, who's checking in from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, got much better views of that storm. The booster that's flying tonight is tail number B1077 in the SpaceX fleet. Before it goes ahead and gets ready to fly for a 21st time, let's take a moment and take a trip down memory lane for the 20 flights that have already happened. This booster began flying back on October 5th of 2022 with a crewed mission that was Crew 5 flight using the Dragon named Endurance. Distinct for a couple of reasons. This mission was the first flight commanded by NASA astronaut Nicole Mann, who became the first indigenous woman to go to space. This is also the first time that a Russian cosmonaut flew to the International Space Station on board a SpaceX Dragon spacecraft. All the crew rotation missions on a Dragon have featured a cosmonaut since this point in time. The next flight was the GPS-3 space vehicle number 6 mission on January 18th of 2023. This series of GPS satellites manufactured by Lockheed Martin, nicknamed for famous explorers. Space Vehicle 6 was named Amelia Earhart. Launch number 3 came a month later. That was on February 18th when this booster launched the Inmarsat 6-F2 satellite. Moving right along, fourth flight was on March 29th with the flight of 56 Starlink satellites on the Starlink 5-10 mission. Next up on June 5th, the launch of a Cargo Dragon spacecraft for SpaceX's 28th commercial resupply services mission, sending more than 7,000 pounds of research and supplies up to the orbiting outpost. There were also a pair of rollout solar arrays on board that Dragon mission as well. Launch number 6 came up on August 3rd when it launched the Galaxy 37/Horizons 4 satellite for Intelsat. This is part of the company's constellation refresh to meet FCC requirements. The 7th, 8th, and 9th launches were all Starlink missions. Those were Starlink 6-13 on September 1st of 2023, 6-25 on October 30th and 6-33 on December 7th. Launch number 10 was a Northrop Grumman Cygnus spacecraft lifting off on the NG-20 mission, part of the company's commercial resupply services contract with NASA to bring science and supplies to the International Space Station. The next five flights were all in support of the Starlink constellation. You had 6-43 on March 10th, 6-51 on April 17th, 6-63 on May 24th, 10-4 on July 28th, and 8-11 on September 5th. That was followed by the Optus X mission, also referred to as TD7, on November 17th. And everything up to the present were Starlink missions: 6-71 on January 6th of this year, 12-18 on February 11th, 12-25 on March 18th, 12-23 most recently on April 28th. That brings us to today. We're in just about 22 minutes. See the flyer Starlink 12-19. Coming up in the next couple of minutes, of course, will be the start of the so-called big vent as SpaceX begins to thermally condition the feed lines there at the pad ahead of second stage liquid oxygen load. Time now T minus 18 minutes, 55 seconds and counting. You can see the big vent is now well underway here at the pad as SpaceX is thermally conditioning the feed lines ahead of second stage liquid oxygen load. It began on time, and it means the clock in the upper right-hand corner of your screen is locked into the correct time, and we'll see this Falcon 9 lift off, barring any technical issues that may crop up between now and then. Now 16 and a half minutes to go before launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. The big vent has wrapped up, and second stage liquid oxygen load is now just less than 20 seconds away from beginning. Just under 15 and a half minutes to go before the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. On board are 23 Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites, 13 of which feature direct-to-cell capabilities. As per usual, SpaceX will end its broadcast views prior to the deployment of those Starlink satellites, but here's a visual of what that will look like. This is from a batch of 21 Starlink satellites, but same as the mission that's getting ready to launch, there are 13 with direct-to-cell capabilities. Those are the satellites you see furthest from the camera view in this video that was shared by SpaceX from a previous deployment. As SpaceX is getting ready to add these Starlink satellites to its constellation. Again, if you weren't with us earlier in the broadcast, this will be the company's 49th Starlink launch of the year, featuring Starlink satellites. Prior to tonight's mission, they've launched a total of 1,169 Starlink satellites this year. 247 of those prior to tonight have had the direct-to-cell capability. With less than 13 minutes to go before SpaceX launches this Falcon 9 rocket, let's go ahead and take a moment to talk about the workhorse vehicle for SpaceX, the Falcon 9. Vehicle stands at 70 meters or 229 feet in height with a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Majority of it is made up by the Falcon 9 first stage booster. Again, this is B1077, which has flown 20 times before tonight. At the base of the first stage are 9 Merlin engines, which burn a rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are black carbon fiber landing legs that will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Tonight, SpaceX is using the ship called Just Read the Instructions. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core, which is surrounded by carbon fiber. In the image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches which attach the vehicle's second stage. At first stage, main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. Also, the second stage engine nozzle is safely housed inside the interstage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle, which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's flight to place the 23 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same propellant mix that is kerosene and liquid oxygen, same as the first stage. Following the deployment of the Starlink satellites, there will be one final burn, a deorbit burn, to drive the upper stage back into the atmosphere, where it will burn up and eliminate the risk of creating any unnecessary space debris on this mission. Finally, at the top of the Falcon 9 stack are the payload fairings, currently encapsulating the 23 Starlink satellites. The fairings are made up of a carbon composite material and stand 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. The fairing halves will be recovered a little bit further downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship. They gently splash down following atmospheric reentry. The final leg of the journey is supported by steerable parachutes. Now T minus 10 minutes and counting. Time now T minus 8 minutes 49 seconds and counting ahead of the planned flight of this Falcon 9 rocket. As we're coming up to the end of the countdown process, I want to thank the nearly 2,500 of you that are watching with us live in the chat. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, share the stream, allows more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. And as we're getting ready to see this Falcon 9 rocket take off from Space Launch Complex 40, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about where this Falcon 9 is going to fly once it leaves the pad. Let's talk a little trajectory, shall we? Falcon 9 rocket, once it makes its ascension, will be flying in a southeasterly trajectory from the pad. Falcon 9 rocket will be following the green arc that you'll see appear here on your screen momentarily. Following stage separation, the first stage booster, B-1077, will follow the red arc and target a touchdown on the drone ship called Just Read the Instructions. If successful, this will be the 123rd booster landing on that drone ship and the 456th booster landing to date. As mentioned, steerable parachutes will help the final leg of the return for these fairing halves, as SpaceX is working to certify both its boosters and payload fairings for up to 40 flights apiece. Once down in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean, they'll be brought aboard one of the recovery vessels, like the one you see here. Bob is on deck for today, named after former NASA astronaut Bob Behnken, one half of the duo that just a hair over 5 years ago now flew the first crewed flight for SpaceX as one half of the Demo 2 mission alongside Doug Hurley. Those two gentlemen now off working for some of the primes that support NASA and other sectors of the federal government. Doug Hurley is now with Northrop Grumman, and Bob Behnken is now with Lockheed Martin. Coming up on the 6 minute mark here ahead of flight, the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines is already underway, and right about now, the first stage RP-1 tank should be topping off. In roughly a minute, we should also be getting pad level views of the Falcon 9 rocket. Taking a look at the chat, I see a mod who I haven't seen in a long time. Astro Joe cruising in. Good to see you this afternoon, or afternoon, goodness. Good to see you this evening, Astro Joe. Appreciate you hopping aboard with us tonight. Now coming up
Track has started.
on the 4 minute mark here, and you can see the SpaceX pad level views as well as the mission audio now being piped in. Good call for the start of strong back retract. Just under 4 minutes now in real time. You'll notice there's a little bit of a discrepancy between our clock and what you see coming in from the SpaceX feed as the clamp arms open up beneath the payload fairings. Our clock is in real time. SpaceX coming in on a slight delay, so as long as we have our ground level tracking views of the rocket, we'll be making callouts based off of real time events until we are solely reliant on the SpaceX onboard cameras. Just under 3 minutes, the first stage LOX tank should be full.
Stage 1, LOX load is complete.
And with that call out, we're awaiting a similar call on the vehicle's second stage. That should be coming up at about the 2 minute mark. T minus 2 minutes and counting.
Stage 2, LOX load is complete.
With that call, the Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. The venting you're seeing right now are the ground gas closeouts.
Ground gas closeouts.
This process is SpaceX clearing the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines at the pad. One minute and counting.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And with that call, we are now waiting the SpaceX launch director to give their go for launch, which should be happening in just a few seconds.
Launch director, go for launch.
And with that call, you're now less than 30 seconds away from this Falcon 9 rocket taking flight. 12 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 12-19 mission. The Falcon 9 has cleared the pad. Now a little more than a minute into flight. Soon the Falcon 9 rocket will be throttling down as it approaches max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Falcon 9 traveling faster than the speed of sound. Rocket passing through max Q. Soon it will be thermally conditioning the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage.
MVAC chill.
Good call. Coming upon a few events in fairly rapid succession, we'll see first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds. That'll be followed by stage separation, and then second stage engine start. A little more than 2.5 minutes into flight. Payload fairings will be jettisoned just past the 3-minute mark.
Nominal trajectory.
There you see MECO. Stage separation. And we should have second stage engine start.
Main engine cutoff.
There you see
Stage
the glow of that.
separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
All good calls, good visuals. A little bit tricky tracking tonight with the cloud cover hanging around the Space Coast. Payload fairing should be jettisoning right now in real time.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And a good view of those 23 Starlink satellites with those fairing halves now making their way back down toward the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Coming up on 4 minutes into flight in real time, the next milestone is just over 2 minutes away from now. That is the start of the first stage entry burn, which will call upon 3 of the 9 engines at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster to begin to dramatically slow the vehicle down as it prepares for a landing on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. Now, a little more than 5 minutes into flight in real time, less than a minute away from the start of the entry burn. Booster making its way down towards the drone ship now. Good view through the inner stage at the top of the booster. Beat 1077.
Both vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
Coming upon the start of that entry burn, we're scanning the skies to see if we might be able to catch a glimpse of it. Might be challenging with the clouds, though.
Stage 1 FTS has safed.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
This burn lasts about 25 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Both vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
Good call, good visuals. And with the conclusion of the entry burn, we're
Stage
now
2 FTS has safed.
awaiting the start of the single engine landing burn, coming up at about T plus 7 minutes and 46 seconds. So less than a minute from now from the SpaceX timeline of things. That call you just heard, stage 2 FTS being saved, that is in reference to the flight termination system, no longer needed at this stage in flight. You'll hear a similar call regarding the first stage booster as it makes its final descent.
Stage 1 transonic.
Booster now traveling below the speed of sound. You'll also hear a call out regarding the second stage, noting that it is in terminal guidance. That means it is nearing the end of this current burn that is undertaking.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
and a good touchdown for B-1077.
Impact shutdown.
And with the conclusion of that burn on the Merlin vacuum engine, assuming that a nominal parking orbit was also achieved, the second stage of the Falcon 9 will continue into a coast phase until T plus 54 minutes and 5 seconds. There will then be a quick 2-second burn on the upper stage engine, and the Starlink satellites will be deployed at about T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 14 seconds. Keep your eye on the strong back as it will be coming up into the upright position as we begin to wind things down for our live launch coverage. As we're getting our replays ready, want to first pop over into the live chat. Thank a few folks for your support this evening. Want to thank Alicia Delegati and Tobe Wobe for each gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that from the both of you. Thanks so much for your generosity in growing our community here on YouTube. And to our 10 newest gifted channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Alicia and Tobe in the live chat. We hope you decide to stick around with channel membership. Also want to welcome in new channel members Corey Mahoney and Alicia. After gifting 5 memberships, became a channel member herself at the pad leader level. So welcome aboard into the both of you. Also, thank you to Toby Wilbe for a very generous $20 super chat. Really appreciate you supporting us at that level, Toby, who says, hi from Starbase. Guess your coast is the best coast tonight. Little Shaka sign closing out the message. Thanks for the kind words and for the support. Yeah, of course, things from a launch standpoint, quiet for now down at Starbase until SpaceX is ready to spin things back up for Starship Flight 10. As we know from Elon Musk's talk following Flight 9, the propellant demonstration is still a ways off, now targeting sometime in early 2026 for that. That'll be an important milestone in support of deep space operations for the Starship rocket. So looking very much forward to that flight and test campaign. Also want to thank our channel member moderator Astro Joe for being a member with us now for 35 months at the pad leader level. He says, cheers, Will, and thanks Spaceflight Now team. As we're gearing up with those launch replays, let's take a look at our mission stats as they currently stand. Starting at the top, this was the 21st flight of a Falcon 9 of the Falcon 9 booster, 1077 in the SpaceX fleet. This was SpaceX's 484th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 67th Falcon 9 launch of the year so far. This was SpaceX's 423rd Falcon booster reflight, with a launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This is the company's 255th Falcon 9 launch, yes, with a Falcon 9 rocket from Pad 40. and the 310th overall orbital launch from Pad 40 as well. Here's to take a look at the bar chart representation of the Falcon family of rockets going back to 2010. Moving on to some recovery stats, this good landing marked the 123rd landing of a booster on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. That was SpaceX's 367th successful drone ship landing and the 456th booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 47th launch from the Sunshine State of Florida. That marked the 71st orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 78th from a U.S. rocket company, and the 122nd orbital launch attempt around the globe. 3 launch failures so far on the year. Here's where our pie chart now currently stands. And it looks like we've got those replays ready for you, so let's go ahead and bring them in, starting with the fixed site view that's arranged by our Adam Bernstein. Moving on to the turn basin view, and of course the reason that you're not hearing the rumble immediately as you see the light is because light travels much faster than sound does, so it takes a little bit for the sound to travel from the pad to our cameras and our microphones. Moving on to the tracker at the press site. And with that, we are going to wind things down now for you all tonight. Really appreciate you stopping by and watching our live coverage here at Spaceflight now. Coming up, our next mission around the corner will be over on the West Coast, the Starlink 11-22 mission targeting a flight on June 4th, barring any additional delays to that mission. That'll carry another batch of Starlink satellites up into low Earth orbit. And then, of course, next week we've got a crew mission. That'll be the launch of 4 astronauts as part of the Axiom Mission 4 private astronaut mission to the International Space Station. One more flight to the now newly minted Astronaut Hall of Fame member, Peggy Whitson. That'll be taken off from Launch Complex 39A over here at the Kennedy Space Center. Again, currently targeting a liftoff on June 9th. And with that, want to go ahead and thank our wonderful moderators in the live chat who've been holding it down tonight. Big thanks to Astro Joe, Jeff Hansen, Clistia Lee. Appreciate y'all for helping us out this evening. Now, technically morning here on the East Coast. Thanks to our friend P. Karstens with Max Q Productions for providing tracking assistance tonight. Thanks to our photography team of Adam Bernstein and John Pisani for running the tracking cameras and helping support the technical operations of the show, as well as to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for also running the technical aspects of the broadcast as well. Most importantly, though, I want to thank you for wherever you've been watching from, here, far, wherever you are. Glad to have you on board with us tonight. We'll look forward to welcoming you back when next we meet again. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.